Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so I will be assuming that you have watched the match, know the outcome, or don't care, as there will be lots of spoilers throughout it. I'll be focusing primarily on macro level strategy, looking at team compositions, their win conditions, how teams pull them off, how they don't, what they need to do to make sure their composition flourishes, and where they fail or succeed at it. I'll also be looking at individual lane matchups, their strengths and weaknesses, as well as item choices when it's relevant to the win or loss of a game, and the occasional individual play. For this match, we have Edward Gaming against AHQ Esports Club. This is their first match of the group stages, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. So it is the first match of group stages for these two. We see a lot of targeted bans. Fizz and Twisted Fate are targeted directly at Westor. Lee Sin targeted at Nas. Edward Gaming feel that they have many choices. One of them is big as Rengar. AHQ don't really play him. And so this means that they can ban out Lee Sin and wait for Rengar or Kha'Zix, whichever one they end up with. On AHQ Esports side, we see Ryze, Zilean, and Alistar banned. Very generic bans. We know Koro loves to play Ryze. He also loves to play Maokai. Zilean being a generic ban at this point. Not really a good use of a ban, as we'll see later in Worlds. But for now, it's pretty standard. Alistar being banned almost every game throughout the whole championship. It's just too strong. First pickup, we see Maokai is being picked up. With Ryze ban, that's Koro's fallback. Pretty generic, should be expected by AHQ. On AHQ side, we see Lucian Kha'Zix picked up. We know that Nas doesn't really play Rengar, so he wants to grab that Kha'Zix early before Edward Gaming can take it away from him. We also see Lucian being picked up. Premier Lane Bully, one of the best ADCs at the time, especially as Corki hasn't come into popularity in the group stages yet. On Edward Gaming's side, we see Rengar picked up second, generic jungle, now that Kha'Zix and Lee Sin have been picked up or banned, and we see Zed. Zed is primarily grabbed as a removal from Westor's champion pool. We know he loves Fizz, he loves Zed, two big assassins, and then his other fallback is Twisted Fate. With Zed picked up, AHQ go ahead and grab Talon. Talon is good against Zed. It's a very, very volatile matchup, and the moment one of them gets ahead, they stay ahead. So if Westor is able to outplay you, he can get ahead, he wins the lane. Same thing goes for Zed, very volatile. They also pick up Nidalee for the top lane. Nidalee does great against Maokai. But these two picks of Talon and Nidalee have essentially told Edward Gaming exactly what AHQ plan to do. And AHQ are planning to split push. They're looking for the 1-3-1. They don't want to do a 1-4. They want both Talon and Nidalee to be able to 1v1 opponents in the top and bottom lanes. Unfortunately for AHQ, they are picking the split push into a Rengar. Rengar is very strong against split pushers, able to surprise them and quickly pull out the 2v1 in the lane, as well as providing good CC with the hard snare and then the follow-up slow. This will work great with Maokai, providing plenty of slows, 2 snares. This will also work great with Zed, giving Zed enough time and that extra boost of damage he needs to get the kill. The double Qs from Rengar being plenty for Zed to kill his target with Deathmark. On Edward Gaming's side, we do see Twitch and Thresh picked up as the final picks. These are also very strong picks into AHQ's strategy. Twitch is great against split pushers. He's also, just like Rengar, able to stealth into a lane, perform assassination tactics. While he doesn't have the CC, he provides more damage and is very good at chasing people once he gets his Blade of the Rune King, and especially afterwards with his... sorry, it's failing me right now. I'll come back to it. His other item, the purple Yomo's Ghost Blade. There it is. Sorry about that. So once he gets those, he can chase, even though Nidalee can escape. He gets plenty of damage. He can open up onto Talon, get a snare from Maokai. Should be enough to kill him, or at least end the split push. On top of this, AHQ and their pick with Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is bad in this game. If you're going to run a 1-3-1, you don't want to pick Blitzcrank. You need a support that can provide some sort of disengage or protection for your 3-man squad. Especially since Lucian doesn't provide good wave clear, picking up Blitzcrank makes this even worse. If EDG ever get ahead, AHQ have no chance of defending while Nidalee and Talon push. If they were planning on this 1-3-1 strategy, Lucian would have been better picked as Corki, especially, maybe even Kog'Maw if you wanted that. And then Nami would have been a much better choice for, instead of Blitzcrank, providing sustain in the defense, providing 2 forms of CC protection if Edward Gaming try to engage. Just being a much better choice. I forgot to mention Thresh is also a good pick in this matchup. When you have 2 mobile split pushers on the other team like Nidalee, like Talon, it's very good for you to have a support who can make plays against them. Thresh picks up mobility boots. It allows him to get to lane. It allows him to move around to the sides for ganks. Because of his CCs, he's very good at stopping split pushes with a lane partner, as long as the split pusher is not able to 2v1. I'm going to back off now. Instead of talking about the team compositions, I want to talk about this level 1 play. We see the lane swaps coming in for AHQ, and I don't know if they were looking for Twitch, if they were trying to find the 2v2, or they actually wanted this 2v1, but they do end up in the 2v1. When EDG know that 2v1's coming with Twitch, they like to attack middle a lot. However, what this is it prevented EDG's bot lane from being able to get a split or a freeze going on. This is going to work out in AHQ's favor very heavily. Nidalee just has to sit back and wait. The lane's naturally going to push towards her, whereas Maokai can't do anything to get the wave on his side. Lucian has started the freeze. EDG's top lane creep minions will start to push into AHQ's turret. Because of this, AHQ send Blitzcrank down bottom. This is to prevent the 4v1 or the 3v1 dive. When you don't have a freeze in your 2v1 lane, you want to get your jungler coming in for the dive against the top laner. That way you can deny them this large wave of EXP and gold that's about to come into AHQ's tower. So by sending Blitzcrank down early, that offers great protection for him and Nidalee. EDG are deterred from the dive and do not go for it. Especially since Maokai has already shown himself top, they know they're safe. Kha'Zix comes up to potentially try and gank Maokai, but he ends up on a ward. This is also a great early game plan by AHQ. Since they had sent Blitzcrank to the bottom, EDG had 2 choices. They could either go for the dive, and then it would be a 3v2 or a 4v2, which is much more difficult than the 4v1 or the 3v1 that would have happened if Blitzcrank had not gone bottom. With Kha'Zix heading top, this also protects Lucian from a Rengar gank. If Rengar had gone top for the early gank on Lucian with Maokai and himself, it would have been very deadly for Lucian. ADCs are weak to these early ganks, as we know. So Kha'Zix is up there for protection. If Rengar shows up, they can fight on an even basis, potentially even win. If Rengar doesn't show up, Kha'Zix is able to provide good slows for Lucian to get the damage and the gank onto Maokai. With the fact that Kha'Zix was sitting on a ward, he just waited there. He knew what he was doing. It prevented Maokai from being able to go up and try and get his CS, and that's why we see a real big deficit on Maokai's side. He was denied EXP and gold from Kha'Zix just standing on the ward. Up top, Rengar could have gone in right there. There was that time right before it as well. Rengar had the opportunity to jump onto Lucian. Just very small opportunities. He had to react super quickly. Unfortunately, he doesn't. He's looking for a better engage, waiting for Lucian to push up a little bit farther. But Lucian, with his spider senses, sends out his W, detects Rengar, safe from the gank. So I mentioned this whole process in the early game has really worked out in AHQ's favor, and it's going to continue to work out in their favor. Nidalee has more CS. She's got a lot more experience than Maokai. Lucian has been free. He's got more experience than Twitch. Both Nidalee and Lucian are ahead of their lane partners in gold and experience. Now that they go back to the lane swap, Lucian goes down bottom with one of his strongest bullying points for this early point in the game. He's going into lane with a pickaxe. This gives him so much more pressure against Twitch, allowing him to heavily out-trade, heavily out-all-in. A good Q into double proc passive, W passive, and then dashing away from Thresh Hook be extremely strong and win them the lane at this point. The pickaxe does much more than the Vamp Scepter from Twitch. On the top lane, Nidalee also goes up with an item advantage, and you see her immediately going against Maokai. Almost gets the kill. Unfortunately, she misses the spear. And this is another benefit of that early game ability, early game play by AHQ. They really outplayed EDG in the map rotations and in the 2v1, and now they're going into lanes in which both their top and bottom are stronger. Not just in their gold and experience advantage, but in the fact that they are naturally stronger laners as well. So they're just accentuating the power that these lanes have. So having talked about that early game and the good map rotations by AHQ, let me get into team compositions. I'm going to start off with AHQ's team because their team composition is fairly simple to understand. We have Nidalee and Talon. AHQ are going to look for the 1-3-1 split push. Their team fight is vastly inferior. EDG is going to have a big armor tank in Maokai, as there's no AP damage on AHQ side, aside from Nidalee, who has some, and I'll talk about her hybrid damage when I get into the individual matchup up top. But once again, Maokai just needs to build armor. We'll see him pick up Rod of Ages, go Randuin's Omen, Frozen Heart. There really becomes nothing AHQ is able to do against him, because since he's able to freely build armor. With this armor focus, it means in the 5v5 he's going to be an extremely strong tank. He's going to be able to jump into AHQ's team and take all their damage. Rengar is also going to be able to follow up with a strong front line, allowing Twitch to spray or rat-a-tat-tat from the back line, and Zed to go in and pick one of these squishy targets to kill. All of AHQ's members are squishy. Nidalee's very squishy. Kha'Zix is probably the more tanky one on the team, but he's not going to be building tanky either. Talon as well is very squishy. If Zed ults Talon, this forces Talon to ult, preventing a lot of the potential damage and the assassination ability of Talon. So, this makes it hard for AHQ. Since they're running the 1-3-1 split push, and they're all running all armor, that's their only choice. There's nothing they can do in the 5v5. If they try and fight it, EDG are just going to absolutely demolish them. This means Nidalee and Talon must get ahead. AHQ have to win the laning phase. They have to get their split pushers to the point where both of them can fight either Maokai or Zed, and both of them are prepared to run away from this Rengar. I'm going to make a quick note of this play right here by Blitz. There was no reason for him to go in and get that hook. He already had the positional advantage over Twitch. He could have walked into Twitch, punched him, got the knock-up, got the damage from Lucian, and then waited for the Lantern or the Flash for his hook. So it was just a bit of a misplay. It was a good hook to hit. However, it could have been played better and been preparing for that Lantern escape. Because of the misplay, they stick around. With Twitch not dead, Rengar comes in with his level 6, gets off a first very solid gank onto bottom lane. They get 2 kills, and then they take Dragon after this. really snowballs Twitch and Thresh, and that's something you don't want to do as AHQ's team. Like I said, you have to win lane to win this game. Now that Twitch has good assists, he's going to, and the Dragon, he gets good gold. Twitch is a good deterrence to split pushers because he's able to come in stealth, get tons of damage, support his lane member. So he's another denial factor for EDG against AHQ's split push. So with these thoughts in mind, I said before, AHQ have to snowball. They can't win this game on an even footing. If they don't get ahead early, there's nothing they can really do. So what they could have done, well, they did the level 1 swap very well. They played the early game very well. If Nidalee had got that kill on Maokai earlier, if Blitz had properly played his positional advantage, AHQ could have gotten ahead. This could have been a very different game just because of these two small moves. With them being behind right now, they're already in a danger zone. They have to make plays. They have to make some aggressive craziness. They need to snowball an advantage. I'd really suggest at this point that Blitz abandon bottom lane, put out some wards, and then go look to help Talon. Talon is probably the lane that Blitz can help the most if he's able to get a hook or even just walk into Zed. That little bit of extra damage is going to be enough for Talon to get the kill. Since Talon has already died in a 1v1 situation, he really does need the help. If he doesn't get help, he'll never be able to split push and he becomes useless in this game. Nidalee herself is doing pretty well. It's just unfortunate that she wasn't able to get the first kill. That really would have helped her out. But right now she's doing a great job. She's constantly fighting Maokai, pressuring him, trying to keep him away from CS. She's doing well right now. The problem is she's going to have to fight Zed. And Zed, with one kill already, is going to be able to annihilate her. Nidalee being very squishy, Zed being great as an assassin. So that's AHQ. And you almost don't want to say that they've lost the game already, but they pretty much have. They're 5 kills down, and they lost Dragon. They don't have any turret advantages. It's a 3.5k gold lead. And we all have seen split push teams fail and fail hard when they're behind, and this is the case of it. They have already fallen behind by the 13-minute mark. They're already going to just be dismantled. So why is EDG's team so good against this 1-3-1 split push of AHQ? Let's go ahead and look at EDG's team composition and their overall strategy. EDG have a fairly decent front line. They have a real huge tank in Maokai, and then they have 2 half tanks in Thresh and Rengar. And when you're going to run some sort of tank lane, it's really good for you to have at least 1 and 2 halves. This allows you forces the other team to have 3 targets, and makes it much more difficult, especially when Rengar and Thresh are under the effects of Maokai's aura damage reduction. Makes it much more difficult for AHQ to focus on the actual damage threats of EDG's team, Zed and Twitch. It's very good for Zed when his team is able to provide a strong front line and sow chaos. This allows him to pick when he dives and who he's diving against. Get in, get out, move on with life. For Twitch, having a solid front wall allows him to get off great rat-a-tat-tats. He's able to provide his strong ADC hypercarry damage. And here's also where we see another strength of EDG's team. They're very good at these skirmishes. Finding this, like I said before, Zed finding these squishy targets really hampers Talon, Nidalee, and Kha'Zix in this match. Maokai's tankiness allows him to survive. It's just really good. So aside from this pseudo front line of the 1 and 2 halves of EDG, they also have great split push denial. And these two factors are what's going to win them the game against AHQ. Because of the tanky front line, and especially because they can just build armor, it allows EDG to win any 5v5 fight, any real skirmish fight as well, 2v2s, 3v3s. They have the advantage in every one of those situations. As the split push denial team, we see Rengar and Twitch as EDG's anti-split pushers. Rengar is able to easily get into the lanes that somebody's split pushing in, either through the jungle path or straight down the lane with his ultimate. Whenever it's up, it essentially denies one lane from AHQ. And this is a big reason why AHQ need to pull off the 1-3-1 split push and can't pull off the 1-4. They're still weaker as a 4-man squad, and so if they're running the 1-4, this gives Rengar one lane to focus rather than having to decide between the two split pushers. So if Nidalee, if Talon are split pushing and being defended against by Zed or Maokai, Rengar comes in, provides the 2v1 advantage very quickly, almost without warning. This shuts down AHQ's split push. The other option in EDG's team for denying the split push come in their bot lane. Twitch can stealth in with as well, just like Rengar, not quite as fast, but he can still get in position to open up onto one of AHQ's members, and then kill them with the help of the lane partner. Thresh as well provides good CC and pick potential, so if he can get around to a split pusher, he can get the CC on, his lane partner comes in, they take out the split pusher. There's a lot of opportunity for EDG to get very solid 2v1s against the split push. One of the reasons this also works so well for EDG's team against AHQ is AHQ's 3-man squad is extremely weak. They lack poke, they lack disengage, they lack safety, they lack any sort of siege potential as well. Even if EDG send 2 members to stop one split pusher, this doesn't allow AHQ any opportunities. If they try and engage onto a turret, Zed, Twitch, Thresh can easily defend. All they have to do is watch out for a blitzcrank hook. AHQ have to get really close with Kha'Zix and Lucian to deal damage to the turrets, and that puts them in danger of Thresh's hook, or of Twitch stealthing in to open up with his assassination potential. And here we see AHQ, they try and get a dragon. Doesn't work out for them, which is to be expected. They're behind in gold, they're behind in EXP, and their team is really bad fighting EDGs in a 5v5, as mentioned before. We see EDG almost get they get a 4 for 1, almost getting a 4 for an ace. Then they take dragon afterwards. It was a great use of exhaust by Thresh to stop Talon's damage. Just maybe Talon could have turned that fight around if it wasn't for the exhaust, or if he had planned it a little bit better. The analysts talk about it later on. However, it really wasn't something that AHQ should be fighting. They needed to make some sort of play. If they had gotten dragon, it would help them come back into the game. But once they saw that EDG was already there, they should have just escaped. It's even AHQ who start the fight. And they start the fight before Talon's there. They start the fight by pulling Maokai into the team. And this is also another big problem with Blitzcrank, especially against a stronger 5v5 team. You get the hook on the wrong target, such as Maokai Rengar, you've helped EDG start the fight. So for the rest of the game, AHQ don't have any real options to win. Their best bet is going to be sticking with the split push, and sticking with the split push to an absolutely insane degree. Sending Nidalee top, Talon bottom, Talon top, Nidalee bottom, or sending both of them into one lane, and just dedicating themselves to this. They have to avoid EDG's team, and if they can trade an objective, that can be considered a win for AHQ. Potentially, if they have Nidalee top and Talon bottom, and EDG decide to 5-man push middle, AHQ can trade 2 towers for 1, or even go for tier 2 turrets and let their inhibitor fall. It's never really recommended to let your inhibitor fall. However, AHQ don't have the option to stop it. the longer this game goes on, the worse and worse it's going to get for them. EDG are in no rush. They just need to play this game slowly, methodically, and they'll easily come out with the win. As long as EDG don't overdive, as long as they don't get picked off one by one over the course of a good 6 or 7 deaths, they'll be fine. This entire game is on EDG to lose, rather than on AHQ to even think about coming back. So let's go ahead and move into individual lane matchups. I'm going to talk about mid lane first, Zed versus Talon. It's a very volatile match. At the moment one of them gets ahead, it's over for the other. There's not much else that can be said about that. Once they do both get some damaging items sort of towards the mid game around this time, even if one person is behind, as we see Talon is behind right now, he still has the damage to effectively kill trade with Zed. They can both just all in each other, and there's enough damage that they'll explode and die. However, in the laning phase, as soon as one person gets ahead, they stay ahead. And that's just how it goes. They're both mid lane melee assassins. At level 1, they both have a pretty even advantage. Talon throws out his rake, Zed uses his shurikens. They can both harass each other fairly well. One advantage that Talon does have is he can hit level 2 quicker, save his rake, throw it out the moment the second wave comes in, knock out that creep, and then go for the all-in onto Zed. Talon's level 2 is actually pretty strong, so is Zed's. It's really about who has the nerve to rush that level 2. Because if you try and rush it, you don't hit it, you lose out. If you do hit it first, you're going to win a trade, and it's going to be massive for you. Talon has a little bit of an advantage in this sense, because even if he does fail to get the level 2, he's normally running with a flask, which means he can back off and heal up much more damage than Zed's going to be able to heal up from his start. Once level 6 hits for Talon and Zed, it becomes a big game of chicken. Whoever uses their ultimate first is most likely going to lose. The moment Zed ults Talon, then Talon is going to be able to use his ult and escape, blocking out a lot of the damage that comes from Deathmark, as Talon should only be hit by the initial damage of Deathmark rather than by any of Zed's skills afterwards. Though Zed can try and throw out the skill shots to predict where Talon's running and hit him. He won't get any auto attacks though. If Talon uses his ult first onto Zed, Zed can try and follow him, Deathmark him after, get out his damage, and he should be able to pump out more damage than Talon can. It is just a big matter of chicken, just like playing against Fizz. In the bot lane, Twitch and Thresh versus Lucian Blitz. I've mentioned this in other videos. I really dislike Blitzcrank being picked into Thresh, or Blitzcrank being picked when Thresh can still be picked up. In this case, it was Blitzcrank into Thresh. Thresh is much more superior to Blitzcrank in the laning phase, at least, being able to provide his ADC with escape from a hook, and if Thresh himself gets hooked, he has the option to go for the enemy ADC and get his own hook and flay, making Thresh the focus of the opponent's ADC while your ADC is able to target theirs. So in this case, if Thresh were to get hooked, he can throw a lantern to Twitch, run at Lucian, flay him, hook him, exhaust him. Now the EDG's focus is onto Lucian, while AHQ have burned their focus on Thresh. The flip side to this is that Lucian is a much bigger lane bully, and the way AHQ played the early game in level 1 really solidified Lucian being able to take control of that lane. It was just unfortunate that they didn't get that first kill onto Twitch, and it turned into a Rengar gank. Otherwise, AHQ's lane should have taken over the bottom. In the top lane, Maokai against Nidalee. This is a pretty interesting matchup. Nidalee very much able to bully out Maokai. It's essentially almost the same as Maokai fighting an ADC. He can sustain through a decent amount of the damage. He can get CS by using his saplings at his Q, by taking damage to get his hits, and he gets some good sustain out of his passive. However, he will be whittled down by Nidalee. If Maokai tries to trade damage with her, Nidalee will just sustain through it. She'll use her heal. She has much better trades, much better sustain. Maokai's hope is essentially to get to a point where he can make Nidalee run out of mana. In the laning phase, this doesn't really happen, unfortunately, and Maokai's kept on the back foot. He must pay close attention to Nidalee's spears and to traps if he's ever hunted. As we've saw in this game, Nidalee will go all in, and Nidalee has the potential for the kill on Maokai when he's hunted. Maokai does not at any time have kill potential onto Nidalee. Nidalee will just outdamage him throughout all portions of the laning phase. One thing to also consider in this matchup is that Nidalee does hybrid damage. Even though she builds AD, she still deals about half her damage in magic damage. All her abilities in cat form, including her Q, do magic damage. So while Nidalee does build AD and she gets AD ratios on her Q, she doesn't do physical damage in cat form. Her spears are also considered magic damage. All her AD damage is just coming from auto attacks, and it's coming from the procs on Trinity Force. This is why even when you build armor against Nidalee, when you're fighting her in the top lane, you have to recognize that she's still going to do significant amounts of damage in magic. This is the one saving grace in AHQ's team, but it's still not enough, as Maokai, being a good tank, can take this AP damage since it's not overly sustained. And here once again we see the power of EDG's team with their gold lead and just their stronger tank line. They rush into AHQ, force the fight in the jungle. Blitzcrank is able to get a hook. It's been AHQ's saving grace this whole game, which is Blitzcrank's strength. He's just not strong in the laning phase, but during the mid game and the late game, he can punish over aggressive plays. And he has been hooking people into turrets. Unfortunately, this is only always after EDG have already gotten kills. We see the gold lead just expands and expands. At this point in the game, just like before, AHQ have pretty much completely lost. They can't fight the 5v5. They're not going to outscale EDG's team. There's not really anything that they could look to do in terms of like a 5v5 fight or looking to go after EDG's team. AHQ have to look for opportunities to avoid EDG's team. This means split pushing. Even though their team is very weak to EDG's counter split push, it's their only option. It might be beneficial to throw Nidalee bottom or top, have Talon follow her and hide. Wait for EDG to try and stop the split push with Rengar or with Twitch, have Talon open up on them and potentially get the kill that way. Surprise EDG with a move simply by keeping Talon off the map for a long time. If they don't make a move like this, then AHQ really have no hope. EDG have been whittling them down, slowly pushing in to take turrets, slowly pushing in for kills, making it harder for AHQ to farm while EDG get all the farm they want. They're growing their gold lead, and even if they weren't growing their gold lead, it doesn't matter because EDG are stronger in the late game, especially with the armor that they're able to build. So I want to talk about Ravenous Hydra on Talon. I, for one, am not necessarily a fan of this. I think building Tiamat is enough. You don't gain any. You gain AD damage and life steal with the Ravenous Hydra, but you don't gain that much more benefit from its active and passive. They're roughly the same from Tiamat to Hydra, and you are spending a whole lot of money for that life leech on the Hydra. I'd rather see Talon finish his Ghostblade, pick up a BF sword, move into an Infinity Edge, because Yomo's Ghostblade plus and getting an Infinity Edge crit on Talon when he goes all in is a massive benefit, and will pretty much guarantee you a kill if you're able to get that crit. So I just much rather see, if they want to build Tiamat, then move into something else, because Tiamat is plenty for the split push on Talon. One reg plus the Tiamat proc and equals a dead wave. Other than that, everyone's playing well. We see Thresh has gotten his Face of the Mountain. He's built into a Warden's Mail. He's going to be that sort of half tank to join Rengar against this full armored team. So there's not too much else to say. Hope it was informative by watching. I'll continually look for things to talk about, but from the macro level strategy, this game is over. EDG are doing the right thing by slow pushing, by continually growing their lead and looking for a pick here, a kill there, and then moving that into the win eventually. It's a very methodical play, and it's the right play. It's something, whenever you recognize that your team is ahead and scales better than the other team, then you should know to take the game at a nice slow pace. One other thing I forgot to mention, now that I think about it, of EDG's team, where their strength lies, is EDG have a very good pick composition going on. At level 6, Zed is very strong, so is Rengar. They can look for kills in AHQ's jungle, they can look for kills in lane. Simply use the mobility and stealth to get on top of one target, kill him, and then get out. As we did see Zed 1v1 Kha'Zix at one point, completely pushing him out of his jungle. And EDG have done that properly. From the level, say, 8 or 9 phase, they took control of AHQ's jungle, started putting pressure on every red buff, every blue buff. This is exactly what they should have been doing. Twitch also helps with this. Twitch can look for picks as soon as he gets his Blade of the Rune King, help Rengar and Zed put pressure in the jungle, look for a lane that you're able to gank and get in with stealth. Try and find those one-on-ones or those 2v1s or the 3v2s or whatever. This very small skirmish fights are going to go in EDG's favor, and they properly looked for it. Let's see. What else is there to talk about? I don't know if there's much more else to say. I hope from this game what you really learned from the level 1. AHQ did play that very well. They got the lanes that I believe it looked like they wanted. Even if they didn't want the 2v1 and were looking for the 2v2, they played the 2v1 swap much better. Getting the freeze, getting Blitzcrank down bottom in time to prevent the dive, knowing where Rengar was, having Kha'Zix top to either gank Maokai or protect Lucian. They got a nice solid CS and experience lead. They transitioned that into lane bullying. We saw Nidalee top push Maokai out. We saw Blitzcrank Lucian on the bottom push out Twitch. Unfortunately, they just didn't quite get those last hits for the kill, and the bottom lane that came back to haunt them when Rengar showed up for his final gank, or for his first gank off his ultimate. It probably should have been a warning note to AHQ that Twitch was sticking around with sub 100 HP. A quick flash hook or flash punch from Blitz could have taken him out. AHQ should have recognized that something was up, that Rengar was probably coming in for the gank, simply because of Twitch not running away. If AHQ had been able to get those couple kills, this game could have gone very differently. Nidalee would have got to her Triforce a lot quicker, which would have allowed her to bully Maokai a lot more. Would have put a lot of strength into the top and bottom lanes. Same thing goes for Talon, getting killed by Zed. He could have escaped that first blood, or not that first blood, but his first death. He just tried to go in for a trade kill afterwards. When he used his ultimate and flashed out, Deathmark wasn't enough to kill him. He also could have ulted, ran to the left, flashed over to the Wraith wall, stayed away from Zed that way. There was not a reason for him to go in. It's, again, unfortunate that Zed's ultimate was able to pull him so far away when he returned to his shadow, preventing another kill on AHQ's team. Sometimes there is stuff to be said for being safe rather than going for those just maybe I'll get the kill. So I hope you learned from the level 1 play by AHQ. I hope looking at the macro level strategies of the team helps you realize the weaknesses of split push compositions, especially the 1-3-1 split push when you have a weak 3-man squad, and the strength that certain compositions have against them. Rengar Twitch particularly being very good against split pushers because of their stealth and their ability to get into the lanes unseen to provide the ganks. If you're ever planning to run a split push composition, it's a good idea to ban out Rengar, and in some other games I'll mention it's also a great idea to ban out Zilean. Rengar because of his ability to deny the split push, Zilean because his passive gets his side ahead, which makes it harder for the split push. Also hope that you take away, when you're dealing with a split push composition, you should have some sort of strong front line. Maokai's great against this. The moment your front line becomes too much for the enemy team to deal with, you essentially win the game because you can just bully them in any 5v5 situation. And then on top of that, having the Rengar on EDGs not only allowed them to bully with the front line, but prevent the split push with denial champions. So I hope it was entertaining. I hope the video analysis was informative and that you got something from it. Once again, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.